Welcome back to the Movie Man. Today I will show you a 2009 psychological horror mystery film, Orphan. Spoilers ahead, watch out, and take care. At the beginning of the movie, Kate and John arrive at the hospital for the birth of their third child. Kate is being wheeled towards the delivery room, while John completes the registration process at the front desk. Soon after, Kate realizes that she's bleeding, but the nurse continues to push the wheelchair without acknowledging the issue. In the delivery room, Kate is in a lot of pain and asks about John's whereabouts, but nobody answers. The doctor tells her to relax, but she senses something amiss with her baby. The nurse then informs her that the baby is stillborn but must be delivered anyway. Kate is in a state of disbelief and insists that the baby is alive. Shortly after, John enters the room with a video camera, assuring Kate that everything is fine. Just then, the nurse hands Kate a stillborn infant trapped in a blood-stained blanket. Overwhelmed with horror, she lets out a scream of despair. In the next scene, Kate startles awake from a nightmarish dream and leaves her bed, making her way to the bathroom. There, she gazes at the scars on her belly and then takes a pill. The next morning, she visits her therapist, Browning, and talks about her nightmares. Browning suggests that these nightmares can be linked to her past stillbirth experience or the impending adoption of a child. As their conversation deepens, Kate confesses that she passed by a liquor store but managed to resist the temptation to go inside. Hearing this, Browning mentions that if she can resist that temptation, she's certainly capable of being a strong adoptive mother. Afterward, Kate goes to pick up her deaf daughter, Max, from school. On their way back home, she gets distracted by a pregnant woman and nearly collides with a truck. Later, at home, Kate tries to compose a tune on the piano, but her concentration is disrupted by Max playing with a basketball. Frustrated, she asks her to stop, and the girl apologizes. Soon after, John arrives home with her son, Daniel, and joins Max in playing basketball. After dinner, Max requests a bedtime story that's based on a deceased child. She inquires if she'll have a new sister, to which Kate replies that it's uncertain. The following morning, Kate and John visit an orphanage, where they're welcomed by Abigail. She guides them inside, where Kate and Abigail observe girls playing, while John is drawn to the sound of a girl singing. He follows the sound and finds a young girl named Esther, working on her painting. John is about to leave when Esther greets him and shares the stories behind her artwork. Not long after, Kate and Abigail join them, and they engage in a conversation with a girl. Esther says that nobody has ever spoken to her before because she's different. The couple seems to like her, so they decide to adopt her. Following this, they discuss with Abigail, who informs them that Esther is a bright Russian girl left at the orphanage after her guardians passed away in a house fire. Abigail assures them that she'll start the necessary paperwork soon. The scene then shifts to 3 weeks later, and John and Kate bring Esther to their home. Max excitedly welcomes them, and Esther uses the sign language she learned on the way to greet her back. She also meets Max's grandmother, Barbara, and everyone offers her welcoming gifts. However, Daniel doesn't look happy and becomes envious when she gives his father a huge thank you hug. Later that day, Daniel brings his friends to his treehouse, where they go through adult magazines, while Esther and Max play together in the snow. At night, as John and Kate are making love, the two girls interrupt them. They say that they are scared of the lighting and want to sleep with them. The parents promptly agree and Esther ends up sleeping next to John, seeking comfort in his presence. The following morning, as Kate prepares Max and Daniel for school, Esther descends the stairs in a fancy dress, which amuses the two kids. Kate suggests that Esther change into a more appropriate outfit for school, but she insists on wearing the same. Kate eventually relents and drives all the children to school. At school, when the teacher introduces Esther to the class, a student named Brenda makes fun of her dress. However, Esther just responds with a stern look and proceeds to her seat. Later that day, Kate sees Esther and Max playing on a frozen stream. She hurries outside, urging them to get off the ice, and reprimands them for playing in a dangerous area. Meanwhile, Daniel is playing with a paintball gun, aiming at a pigeon. He hits the bird, causing it to suffer on the ground. Right then, Max and Esther approach him, and the latter hands him a brick, instructing him to end the pigeon's suffering. When Daniel refuses, Esther takes matters into her own hands and smashes the pigeon mercilessly. She then heads to take a bath. In the meantime, Kate enters Esther's room to put away her laundry. In one of the drawers, she discovers a Bible book with a photo of a man. She hastily puts the book back in its hidden spot. Unbeknownst to her, Esther is watching her from the bathroom. The next day at school, Daniel's friends make fun of him because of Esther, so he intentionally knocks the books from her hands. As she stoops to pick them up, Brenda seizes her Bible and tosses it, scattering its pages. Esther, in a state of distress, hastily collects the pages. While doing so, Brenda attempts to remove the ribbon around Esther's neck, but the latter scares everyone by letting out a scream. Back at home, Kate guides Esther in playing the piano, while also inquiring about the school incident. However, the little girl brushes off the conversation, insisting that there's nothing to talk about. Changing the subject, Esther asks about Jessica, saying that Max often talks about her. Kate then shows her the place where Jessica, her deceased baby's ashes, is buried among white roses. Later, after dinner, thinking the children are asleep, Kate and John make love in the kitchen. Esther unexpectedly appears, but she promptly leaves. The following morning, Kate approaches Esther to discuss the same incident. The girl appears unfazed and casually mentions that she's aware of intimate activities as well as the F word. Later, the parents discuss it with Kate, suggesting that they take Esther to see Browning. However, John thinks that it's overreacting to take the child to therapy for just one dirty word. Later on, he takes his children to a nearby park, where their neighbor, Joyce, approaches him and begins to flirt. Esther eavesdrops on their conversation and simultaneously spots Brenda. She gives her a cold look, which makes the bully nervous. As Brenda prepares to descend from the slide, Esther shoves her from behind, causing her to break her leg. Max witnesses this, but Esther instructs her to keep it a secret. That evening, over dinner, the parents question Esther about the incident involving Brenda. She claims it was an accident, which Max confirms. While they dine, Daniel taunts Esther and begins calling her names, prompting the parents to berate him. Enraged, Daniel swears at her and leaves the table, stating that Esther is not his sister. As a punishment for his inappropriate behavior, John locks Daniel's treehouse. Later, Kate is at the grocery store with her two daughters when she receives a call from Abigail. The latter asks about Esther. Taking this opportunity, Kate steps aside and discloses all the incidents that have transpired lately. Meanwhile, Max reads her lips and conveys the information to Esther. Once they are back home, the weird girl surprises Kate by playing the piano flawlessly. Intrigued, Kate questions her about why she pretended not to know how to play, to which Esther responds that she did it for her. That same night, Kate complains to her husband about the girl, which results in a heated argument between the two. Esther overhears them and seems to be happy. A few days later, Abigail visits their residence. She speaks with the couple, expressing her concerns that something may be wrong with Esther. She even lists some past incidents, where the girl tried to hurt other children. Hearing this, Kate once again urges John to take Esther to see Browning, and this time, he agrees. Like and subscribe may look simple for you, but for us, it's precious. Please like, subscribe, and press the bell icon for the latest notifications. Thank you for being so supportive. Meanwhile, the weird girl overhears their conversation and becomes scared. So, she rushes to Max and seeks her help. The two girls then locate the keys to the treehouse, and Esther uses them to retrieve a gun from John's safe. She loads the gun with a bullet and points it at Max, scaring the little girl. After this, they hide at a nearby bridge, waiting for Abigail's car to pass. Esther instructs Max to stand in front of her car and wave to stop her. Shortly after, Abigail approaches but Max hesitates to move. As a result, Esther pushes her onto the road, causing Abigail to slam on the brakes and swerve off the road. When she rushes to check on Max, Esther strikes her with a hammer, rendering her unconscious. She then forces Max to help in moving the body before anyone sees them. Together, they push Abigail down a hill, but she regains consciousness. Seeing this, Esther repeatedly strikes her head with the hammer until she stops breathing. After this gruesome act, the two girls go to the treehouse, where Esther hides her blood-stained clothes and the hammer, while Max continues to cry. To keep this incident a secret, Esther scares Max, claiming that she could also go to jail for assisting her in the crime. As they climb down the treehouse, Daniel spots them from a distance, and Esther notices him too. That night, she sneaks into his room and holds him at knife point, threatening him not to utter a word. Daniel is so terrified that he wets himself. In the next scene, Kate and John take Esther to see Browning. The therapist talks to the girl while the couple waits outside. Later on, Browning assures them that the child is fine and suggests that Kate might be projecting feelings of inadequacy as a mother onto Esther. John agrees with his assessment, after which they depart. Back home, Kate receives a call from the orphanage, informing her that Abigail hasn't returned yet. The case involves the police, and they soon find Abigail's dead body, though presently there are no suspects. Meanwhile, Esther is seen in her room, repeatedly switching the aquarium light on and off, revealing a disturbing painting of a house and a family. Afterward, Kate researches on signs of disturbed children and shares her findings with John, relating them with Esther's behavior. However, he remains unconvinced. Concerned for their children's safety, Kate contacts the Russian orphanage from where Esther came. But, much to her surprise, she learns that there's no record of Esther. The next day, Kate drops off Daniel and Max at school. Before leaving, she inquires if Esther has caused them any harm, but they both lie and respond negatively. Later in the evening, Esther offers Kate some white roses she picked from Jessica's grave. This triggers Kate's anger and she grabs the girl's arm forcefully. Hearing the commotion, John intervenes and Esther runs away from there. She then sneaks into the tool shed and deliberately fractures her arm. Later, she calls John, sobbing and claiming her arm still hurts. Sensing a serious injury, he takes her to the doctor. After the medical examination, John tucks Esther into his bed. As Kate enters the room, he confronts her, but she asserts that she didn't grip Esther's arm that hard. Later, an upset Kate contemplates turning to alcohol, but she manages to control herself and pours the wine down the sink. The following morning, she takes the three children to school. As Daniel walks out of the car, his bag rips, so Kate steps out to help him. At that moment, Esther releases the car's brake, causing it to start rolling with Max inside. Seeing this, Kate runs after the car until it's stopped by a large pile of snow. She quickly retrieves Max, who is thankfully unharmed. Later that night, Browning is summoned to the house to speak with Kate. She defends herself, insisting that she didn't harm Esther and had properly placed the car in park. John then shows the two wine bottles on the table, revealing that Esther had found them. Kate attempts to clarify her perspective, but they don't believe her. The therapist then informs her that he has reserved a spot for her at a rehabilitation center. When she refuses to go, John warns her that he'll file for divorce and take the children with him. Meanwhile, Max eavesdrops on their conversation, and Esther approaches her, whispering that she'll shoot her mother if she reveals anything. Afterward, Daniel goes to Max's room and asks if she knows anything about Esther. Max confesses the truth by making drawings that depict each incident. When she informs him about the items hidden in the treehouse, he decides to retrieve them as evidence to confront Esther. Unbeknownst to them, the evil overhears their entire discussion. The next day, Kate checks Esther's room and discovers the Bible book with a reference to the Saarn Institute. She searches for this name online and contacts the provided number, only to learn that it's a mental hospital. In the meantime, Daniel sneaks into the treehouse to gather evidence. Esther follows him there and starts pouring gas over the evidence. She burns them down, setting the treehouse ablaze. She then locks Daniel inside to burn him alive. In a desperate bid to save himself, Daniel climbs to the top, but he slips and falls, rendering himself unconscious. As Esther prepares to finish him with a large rock, Max pushes her away. Just then, Kate notices the fire and runs to the scene. Daniel is rushed to the hospital, where the doctor delivers the grim news: the boy has suffered a severe neck injury. Concerned for their children's safety, John again urges Kate to seek rehabilitation. This time, She agrees, but on the condition that Hester leaves the house. As the two are arguing, the girl stealthily enters Daniel's room and attempts to suffocate him with a pillow. But at the same time, the alarm goes off, prompting the doctors to rush there. Fortunately, they manage to resuscitate him. Suspecting that Hester is behind all this, Kate slaps her hard, but this only results in her being restrained and sedated by the hospital staff. That night, John returns home with Max and Esther, while Kate is admitted to the hospital. Later, she receives a call from Dr. Vairava, from the Sarin Institute, who reveals that Hester has a hormonal disorder called hypopituitarism. Here, it's revealed that Hester is, in fact, a 33-year-old woman in a young girl's body. Vairava urgently advises Kate to stay away from the girl and call the cops. He further reveals that Hester was one of their most violent patients, who had killed several people. This freaks Kate out, prompting her to rush back home. Meanwhile, Esther is seen removing her false teeth and wiping off her makeup, which makes her look young. A short time later, John enters her room only to discover her disturbing paintings. On her way, Kate attempts to call John, but the power goes out before he can answer. He then slowly makes his way downstairs to the electrical panel, but he's suddenly attacked by Esther, who repeatedly stabs him to death. Realizing that Max has witnessed the entire ordeal, she then goes after her. Upon arriving home, Kate discovers John's lifeless body, a sight that shatters her emotionally. After a period of grieving, she remembers her daughter and proceeds to find her. Before she can locate Max, Esther intercepts her and shoots her in the shoulder. Despite this, Kate manages to climb out of a window and hides there. Just then, she spots Max hidden among the plants. Seeing Esther approaching him, Kate shouts from above, prompting her to fire a shot through the glass roof. The impact shatters the glass, causing Kate to fall onto Esther, resulting in both of them losing consciousness. Shortly after, Max awakens Kate, and the two make a run for the forest, leaving Esther behind. The police arrive and enter the house, but Hester is no longer there. Turns out that she's chasing Max and Kate with a knife. Following this, Kate and Esther tumble onto a frozen pond and engage in a fierce brawl. At the same time, Max retrieves the gun and fires a shot, cracking the ice beneath them. Both women plunge into the freezing water, but the struggle continues. At last, Kate finally manages to defeat the evil girl by kicking her into the water, and the police also arrive at the scene. That was all of the video. I hope you enjoyed it. Thanks for watching.